What if I told you that the reason your team isn't growing isn't because of the lack of talent? It's actually because the lack of the leader's ability to transfer skills. I will tell you that as a leader, I raise my hand, most of our wounds are self-inflicted. We think we can do things faster, we think we can do things quicker, or we think just by showing somebody something that they should just get it. It leads to confusion, it leads to frustration, and it doesn't lead to better results. Today, Josh Buffington and I are going to walk you through what we call the skills transfer process that will allow you to set your teams up for higher success, better results, and definitely as a leader, less stress. I'm Chad Carden, founder of the Carden Group, and for the past 2.5 decades, I have helped leaders all across the globe transfer skills, build more capabilities, more comfort, and more confidence.
I'm Josh Buffington, Senior Project Lead, Senior Advisor. Been with the Carden Group for now going on 10 years, nearly, and just worked with leaders across the globe as well. Really getting them to focus on 3 things: building stronger working relationships, driving more engagement with their people, and understanding the fulfillment that everyone brings to the large piece of the puzzle every single day.
Thanks. I'm looking forward to getting into this. Let's talk about why this matters. Let's talk about why skills transfer matters. Because when leaders don't effectively transfer skills, it just doesn't cause frustration. It actually causes hindrance and headwinds into the progress and results you're trying to make. When leaders do get this right, there is tremendous impact with this. They help their teams grow. They, as a leader, no longer feel responsible or the pressure to do the things that might be on their plate every single day. You know, we always talk about how short-term shortcuts create long-term headaches. And that's what happens when, as a leader, I try to do something faster or try to just show somebody one time and think that they get it. However, short-term investments create long-term dividends. And so how can we as leaders use this skills transfer process, invest in our people in the short term, which might take a little bit of work, a little bit of energy, a little bit of effort, but create long-term dividends where now we set our teams up for the highest probability of success. Here are a few stats that I want to read that I think that when we're looking at this video that we just polled that I think can really also help back this up. There was a study done by LinkedIn that said 94% of employees say that they stay at a company longer if that company is invested in their development. Think about that. Over 9 out of 10 employees will stay if we invest in their development. This skills transfer process is the foundation to do that. 70% are more likely to stay with their company for 3 years or longer. We all know the cost of talent acquisition these days. And we all know a lot of times when they leave, it's that sunk cost and we'll never get that investment back. So 7 out of 10 will actually stay longer over 3 years if we just invest in their development. Now, unfortunately, only 12% of employees out there, according to this study, think that their leader actually is invested in their development growth. That's a scary statistic. I mean, only 12%, right? Organizations with strong learning cultures, there's a 92% more likely innovative development around products and processes, which means it's quicker, it's faster, and they get to results better. Companies that prioritize employee development, 11%, think about this, 11% greater profitability and are twice as likely to retain employees. 11% doesn't sound like a lot, but think about adding 11% to your bottom line. Think about adding 11% to the profits. So there's a lot of things that happen here that are just interesting with these stats. So, one of the biggest mistakes that leaders make when they're transferring skills is really to not be clear and really not have a formulaic process that they follow. They just sort of show them one time, or they think if they just watch them one time that they'll get it. And that just really isn't the case. And a lot of times this skill transfer gets lost in translation.
That's why we use this skills transfer exercise in a lot of sessions where I'm delivering, especially when we're getting ready to set the foundation for the skill set, tool set part of the delivery. Because we see that there are so many gaps. And as you'll see in this exercise, as many people will see in this exercise, it's a telephone game. There are a few rules. And you'll see some gaps that are uncovered early on in this exercise before we actually get into explaining and demoing the skill part of this session. So there are 3 rules. As you'll see, no looking behind you, no talking. Number 2, no writing anything down.
Okay.
And we're teaching them a simple skill. The skill is putting on a jacket, putting on a coat. And there's detail to the skill. We have some fun with it. But as you see this exercise unravel, you'll also see some of the gaps in how this information is processed, transferring the skill, a simple skill of putting on a coat.
Yeah, you recently did this and we had the chance to film it. So let's take a look at this in action. And what I want you to look for is see what's missing and see how little dynamics can make a big shift as Josh walks this group through this exercise.
There are a few rules here. Rule number 1, straight line, face those doors. You cannot look behind you. Rule number 2, you cannot speak. Rule number 3, you cannot write anything down. Any questions on that? All right, so face forward. We'll let you know when it's your time to go. I'm going to teach Joyce a skill non-verbally. I will tap Joyce on the shoulder. When she gets the tap, she will turn around. I will teach her the skill non-verbally. One time, I will go sit down. We're going to teach the same skill all the way down the line. Make sense? All right, here we go. You can sit now. You can sit. Nope, have a seat. Have a seat. Perfect. You got it. Good job. Good job. Okay, have a seat. I want you to show everyone the skill that I taught person number 1 before we got to you at the 12th spot. Show us. Let's give her a hand. Good job. What was the skill that I taught originally? Putting on a jacket. So here's what it should have looked like. Put your left arm in, right arm in, coat on, zip, button, hood, cold outside. With no talking. But what's the message here when we're transferring a new skill or a new tool like we're doing today, the Cardin Group, and with the help of ambassadors? What's the message? What can happen? Miscommunication, how it's perceived, how it's interpreted, what else? Yeah, people naturally mess it up, so there's human error. What would have made it easier? Okay, identifying the goal, the why, what else? If we could have used words, what else? Okay, if you saw a mistake, you could correct, so feedback. right? So feedback, verbal communication, maybe an extra demo.
All right. So let's break this thing down. So talk to us about why you set up the exercise the way that you did and how you see it typically unfold.
We have two goals when we walk into the room every single day, and those two goals are to have fun, and we want to make sure that we give them relevant information to take back.
Okay.
And so my first answer to your question is it's a fun exercise. They have a blast doing it. You'll see that. Obviously, we saw that as we watched the video. But really just breaking this thing down, I explained, number one, the rules, the table stakes of the game, again, which was no talking, no looking, no writing down, straight line facing forward. Took 12 to 15 volunteers. It's opportunity for them to get in front of the room, out of their comfort zone. And then finally, I demoed the skill one time.
Yeah.
Non-verbally.
We always say that human behavior is predictable. You've done this exercise no less than 100 times. What are the things that you can predict that will always show up? What happens? Where's the breakdown?
Well, the breakdown obviously is there's not a do-over with the one that is explaining and demoing. I'm explaining it once, I'm demoing it once. Obviously, sometimes people need to process that multiple times,
right,
and see it or hear it multiple times. So early on in the process, typically what happens is, one or two will get it right or close to right, but there's always a breakdown in the gap of, I need to see it again, or someone will do this when they're done. Well, that transfers to the next person, to the next person, to the next person. Before too long, you have someone doing the cha-cha at the end. So that's where the audience behind us, as you hear the laughter, they know the skill. They know it's putting on a coat,
right,
the way it was demonstrated. But it's really interesting to see how it unfolds throughout 12 to 15 participants.
And how would using the skills transfer, which we're gonna get into in just a minute, how would the skills transfer enhance that exercise?
Yeah, it really it really drives home the point that it is easy to get lost in the shuffle. Human error happens.
Yep.
Sometimes we get too busy to go to another step because it would actually help the staff member or the team member potentially process that information better.
Yeah.
But we just get caught in our own lane a lot of times.
Right.
So we introduce the skill, and it really gives validity to the process that we teach behind the exercise. So that's, it's the what, it's the why, it's the how, and we're really able to cover all of that with not only the introduction to the exercise, but the exercise, and then getting into the actual skills transfer process.
Yeah, and what I found too, and you and Shay do this great. It's hard for me to duplicate it with my groups, but what I found too is that when you're going through this, whether you're in that line or whether you're in the audience watching it, you can correlate how that exercise shows up every day in the organization and why they might not be getting the results and why there might be confusion.
And it could be a simple report.
Right.
It could be having an expectations conversation the way that your supervisor wants you to have that conversation. Yeah. It could be policies, it could be systems, it could be a number of different things. However, we just see a lot of gaps.
Yeah.
And it gets rushed through. And then what doesn't happen is that key word that every leader needs to have in their back pocket: empowerment's not taking place, which empowerment can lead to what? Succession planning, which can lead to mentorship. Yeah. And there's a turnover nonstop, as we see in this business. And how can we just slow down, like you said earlier, a short-term investment and really spend some time developing and not just say we're doing it either.
Yeah. We talked about that statistic that only 12% think their leader's doing it, because a lot of times you just check the box. Let's get through it. I don't have time. Let's just check the box and say we did it.
We have money in the budget. Let's spend it. Let's check it. Okay, we covered that one.
Yeah. That's a fun exercise. And like you said, it's fun, it's relevant, and they can really make the correlation. Now let's take a look at how to properly transfer the skill using our skills transfer process.
So a lot of times, so now we invent, right? We just, boom, the curtain opens. Here's the process.
Okay.
And we pull this from the audience. But step one is explain. Did I explain the rules? Did I explain how this exercise was going to work? There's a lot of, there's alignment to that. Yes, the rules were explained, right? Everyone was crystal clear on how to do this. Now, of transferring this skill of putting on a coat or putting on a jacket. Number two, did I demonstrate it? Yes, I did. Did I do it verbally? No, it was not verbally when I was doing it. There was no talking. However, they agreed that happens. Was there practice? Yes, there was practice. Was there practice with coaching? right? There was not. I was not coaching them through as they were practicing this. So we're really trying to live early on when we teach this skill in those first 3 steps. And here's the reason why. Step 4 is observe and listen. Step 5 is feedback. Observing and listening to us is when now they're in the driver's seat, we're still in the passenger seat, and we're watching them do this in real time.
Right.
Practicing is not necessarily in real time. They're still getting their reps. And we're a firm believer that repetition is the motherhood of learning.
Right.
So if we have to get them very confident, competent, and comfortable in that practice zone while we're coaching, not looking over them, but helping them get through potentially some mistakes to where they can now be themselves in that task, in that skill, in that process, in that system. But once we go through this process, the benefit for us as leaders is we can really find out where that gap is, that learning gap, and we can find out what works best for them. They might need an extra demo.
Right.
They might need just an extra explained. They might need 1 practice session. They might need 15.
Yeah.
But we really get to know our people, which leads us into those listening and feedback sessions as this thing progresses.
Yeah. So again, the skills transfer process, which we walk through in depth, is, we first have to explain it.
Mm-hmm.
Then there has to be a demonstration, which a lot of times leaders miss. They want to jump right to the doing, or they want to jump right to, okay, I just explained it, you go do it. Or they might demo it, but then they don't allow that practice with coaching, which is the next step.
And it has to be a great demonstration.
It has to be a world-class
world-class demo.
Because I need to know what good looks like.
That's right.
It's just like you mentioned before, teaching somebody how to drive a car, right? Yeah. They sit in the passenger seat, they watch you do it, and you're kind of explaining as you go. Then when you put them in the passenger seat, now that's practice with coaching. You're still there.
Yeah.
And they might need 1 time, they might need 100 times, but it's that short-term investment that if you put the right investment in, it's going to pay off long-term, and you're going to get that dividend. Then when you, like you said, now we're observing and listening, and we're giving them feedback. And if they're doing it and it's showing up, it's getting the results, it's that positive reinforcement. It's that positive recognition. If they're not, some people might need more at-bats. You go back to steps 1, 2, and 3 until you commit to this process, until that person really has the skill. It becomes habit. It's part of their DNA, and they're leveraging it to drive results in their role. That's when the empowerment, that's when the succession happens.
It's the fundamentals of the business.
Right.
It's the fundamentals of the job description and of their role within. And when you learn the fundamentals and you have the discipline and fundamentals, whether you're the one receiving the information to take over this skill or you're the one delivering the information to transfer this skill, when you live in the fundamentals, you earn yourself a lot more freedom.
Absolutely.
And you become able to be yourself in these moments, even if it's something as simple as a new process or system that you're taking over, and you're just creating momentum and a shared experience along the way.
So we're highly probably biased, but we think the skills transfer process is definitely a tool in every leader's toolkit that they need to master, where they can A, delegate things, B, set their teams up for the highest probability of success, and C, drive even better results. If you're interested in the skills transfer process, if you're interested in either being able to delegate or setting your people up for empowerment moving forward and really creating a high level of success for them, please check out our Design Leader digital course. It will give you more in depth about the skills transfer, plus additional soft skills and additional tools that can help you improve wherever your leadership journey is right now. I'll put the link in the description below. The truth is, as a leader, it's not about how much you can do. It's about how much you can help your team do, how much you can leverage your team's talents, delegate those resources, and set your team up for the highest probability of success by taking the skills necessary, transferring them to them, and making them experts at those skills in the roles that they sit in.
2 words, really, Chad: leverage, intentional. It's not about even being the smartest person in the room as a leader, right? It's about surrounding yourself with very smart people, and we might have to get them there and transfer some skills along the way and really mentor them. Once we get them there, look at what we've created for our internal leadership team. And now we can be intentional with every single decision we make, and we're leveraging each other. We're really creating an experience that's going to get to the masses as we drive impact.
And I think that's the challenge. So if you're watching, that's a challenge for me as a leader. That's a challenge for Josh as a leader. That's a challenge for you as a leader. Pick a skill. Think about a skill that you could transfer into your team and commit to this skills transfer process. Commit to explaining, demoing, practicing with coaching, observing, giving them feedback, or it becomes part of their DNA. So now that tool that's in your toolkit is also in their toolkit. And now you're maximizing effort and you're maximizing results. I promise you, your future self and your future team will thank you for it. Now that you know the right way to transfer skills, let's take it a step further. Check out my next video, The Science Behind High Performing Teams. I promise you, you don't want to miss it.